We gather videos and information from the web, and if you stick around, we are going to share it with you. So stay tuned for news and updates.
What's going on right now with our Federal Reserve note?
What is going on right now is that paper currency never works. It always crashes. And we are just at the moment that we have the time to convert that to treasury dollars. And this is exactly what Ronald Reagan was trying to do when he did a study, and he found out that 100% of our income taxes are leaving the country and going to the bankers. That's what John F. Kennedy was doing. And John F. Kennedy, he had accessed the wealth of the world and the gold that we're supposed to have. The Federal Reserve does not have the gold that the United States is supposed to have backing its dollar. That gold is there, but it's not going to be backing the Federal Reserve note. And so we have got to transition very quickly to the real currency in the United States. And Ronald Reagan printed that currency. It's there waiting for us. And we just simply have to exchange it, very simply. And we will not have any economic dislocation. Otherwise, you better believe this country is not going to have any more military might. If we stay with the Federal Reserve note, we will have lost our standing completely. As it is right now, the Federal Reserve note is no longer what's called international reserve currency. That means that the countries are using other currency in their international trade. The BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, that's 25% of trade. They're not using the dollars with their own trade. And 133 developing countries, that's the group of 77, they've announced that they're not going to be using dollars in their international trade. Now, one of the things, getting back to what I was doing at Yale Law School, between my junior and senior year, I wrote a paper on how that coalition of the developing countries, called the G77, was developing. I went to the UN between my junior and senior year at Yale, and I wrote a 200-page paper.
For me, this event that you're hosting, Olga, this morning is about smart regulation. And the United States is teaching us exactly how not to do it. We still have a piece of legislation from 1946, which determines what a security is. And we're calling that interpretation and adapting it to a digital asset. You've got to be bonkers if you think that sort of framework is going to give any firm and any business any degree of certainty or security as to how they can manage their businesses. And therefore, that's why this event is focusing on smart regulation, because I believe that the US takes the view that when something is big enough, then it's going to move in and do things to it, which nobody knows where they're going to come from, why they're going to come for it. And the whole thinking behind the regulatory action, in my view, should be when you're breaching something. And I don't see that in the United States. And so I think the sooner that they get to grips with actually deciding who's going to regulate this space, how they're going to regulate this space, and why they're going to regulate this space, the whole blockchain space and the whole crypto area will dramatically grow as a result of that certainty, because that's what firms are crying out for. So when firms come to Gibraltar, they want to know that they're coming here for certainty. You've got a legal framework, you know what you have to do, you know which hoops you have to jump through, you know what you have to do to stay on the right side of the law. That is a framework that gives people the certainty to be able to confidently invest and grow their businesses. And so the Ripple case, the Telegram case, and unfortunately there'll probably be a few more firms very worried looking over their shoulders as to if they're going to get the call or not, for me stems from this lack of regulation. And that is what, I pull the little hair I got left at, worrying about why we are in this position and why the US doesn't do what it should do, which
convinced of one thing. When the next crisis hits, the elites are planning to freeze the financial system, and they'll replace it with a new system, one not based on the US dollar. When that happens, we'll wake up to a very strange and disturbing new reality.
And the last factor I want to mention is resilience, the capability to bounce back, because there will be certainly what we call the black swans, the unpleasant surprises which will come in our way.
These elites share one vision, and they're about to make it a reality. That vision is one world order, one world taxation, and one world money.
Everyone, we are back in session here in Washington, D.C., and I'm about to cast my vote for our very first bill this Congress. It's 2 pages, not thousands. It has 1 subject and 0 earmarks. Oh, and it'll help stop the harassment of the American citizens by prohibiting those 87,000 IRS agents from ever even being hired. That's conservative governance at its finest. More freedom, less government, and we are just getting started.
We're here today to share the findings of the World Economic Forum's Global Security Outlook Report 2023. This is a result of research in collaboration with the forum's communities and our partner Accenture, in which we've interviewed and sought input from over 300 executives globally. The most striking finding that we found is that 93% of cyber leaders and 86% of cyber business leaders believe that the geopolitical instability makes a catastrophic cyber event likely in the next 2 years.
Whether there are some market tests of whether you're being heard. And I think about TLAC. So TLAC should respond to good and bad news about the institutions. And it's really important. I mean, it's a little bit conflicted, right? I mean, it's important that people understand they can be bailed in, but you don't want a huge run on the institution. But they're going to be. And it could be an early warning signal to the FDIC and the primary regulators when these things happen. And there may be some other prices, this is similar to what Jay was saying, in the market that you can tell whether people understand who's going to be protected, who isn't going to be protected. It would be, I think, an interesting study to look at the evolution of market prices in a situation like March of 2020, for example. And
so maybe they go from building houses and buildings.
Do you think a recession comes this year? Because even Larry Summers is kind of
yes, you're going to have a recession third or fourth quarter. And the consumer's sort of out of dough. His savings rates are at all-time lows. 2.3%.
That would explain the 10-year.
He's on his credit cards, inventory. Yep. This guy. It's interesting. One thing about inflation, because we talked about the supply chain, it's not totally fixed. And so if you're building a building and you can't get the generator, you got everything else, it's no good, right? You've got to get all the supplies. And I look at what we're doing, and we're opening a hotel in Hawaii in 2 weeks, and we can't get this, and we can't get that, and we can't open this. We'll open part of and it's all because the supply chain is broken still in places. It is getting fixed, but it takes time.
If you look at the data, there's virtually no purchasing power left in the fiat money, in any of the currencies, right? So officially, in the U.S., you can go to the Fed, and so anybody can go on there and see, because everybody's looks the same, okay? Or extraordinarily similar. So if you go into the FRED, the Fred, which is the Federal Reserve Education Department, and in that little search bar, you put in purchasing power of the consumer dollar, purchasing power of the consumer dollar. What you're going to see is that officially we have roughly 3 cents left out of that original dollar's worth of purchasing power.
Look at this. These motherfuckers are crazy. They want $80 fucking for some fucking egg.
But my point is, I came away from all 3 meetings convinced of one thing. When the next crisis hits, the elites are planning to freeze the financial system, and they'll replace it with a new system, one not based on the U.S. dollar. When that happens, we'll wake up to a very strange and disturbing new reality.
And for our viewers that are watching today,
what might their reality look like that morning? How does this manifest?
First, they'll have gone to bed knowing that a massive financial crisis was underway. But when they wake up, they'll find it has worsened and the contagion has spread worldwide. When they go to withdraw money, their ATM will say, closed temporarily. When they go to sell stocks, their account will say, transaction not available. When they go to their local business, that business will only accept cash if it's open. As citizens realize they're being barred from their money, riots will erupt. It's going to get really bad really quickly.
How would such a freeze actually work? And wouldn't that be highly illegal?
Well, it wouldn't be illegal technically because they've been quietly laying the groundwork for years. They've rigged the financial laws, changed the rules of the game to allow this to happen. The stage is set. They have the levers in place. The lights are positioned. Now someone just needs to flick a switch and they'll impose ICE 9 rapidly. And again, all of this will be legal because they've rigged the system in their favor. Here in the U.S., for example, Congress pushed through something called the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEPA. This allows the government to freeze accounts, assets, even whole institutions at will. The only condition is that there's some threat to national security with a foreign connection. Of course, with a global market, every financial crisis has a foreign connection. Any systemic crisis fits the bill. And the thing is, when the next crisis hits, it's going to be so bad, President Trump won't have any choice but to go along with the elite's plan.
Wow.
This is not financial advice, and by any means you should not take any advice from us. We have no financial background. This channel is strictly fun-based. So stay along for the ride, and if you like what you see, be free to like and subscribe.